Good evening, Texas. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Thank you all. Thank you very much. Thank you, thank you. What a pleasure and what a thrill to have you here tonight. I hope that you are enjoying your time at the table to talk with other like-minded Texans who have engaged the battle for freedom and prosperity in our state. I'm not sure what I've heard most often since the primary election. Probably there are two things that vie, number one and number two, please don't go away. And I have promised that with my dying breath I will be fighting for freedom and liberty. I said there's no quit in Deborah Medina, and I want you to know that. But more importantly, there's no quit in Texans. And while you are here, many of you here this weekend for the Texas Republican Party State Convention, and some of you, if you're like me, feeling a little bit unwelcome and a little bit unappreciated, I wanted to make sure that, by golly, you knew that there were people around this state who shared your idea and who shared your enthusiasm for a restoration of sovereignty and for a fight for freedom. There's a special camaraderie that develops when people share a meal together. We're here to do that, to have a good time this evening, to get to know one another, to spur one another on to good works, to exhort one another, hold each other accountable to stay engaged in the fight. And the second thing I was asked was, what are you going to do? I've heard over and over and over, and from some very influential, long-time elected officials across this state, both at the state and federal level, who have said, you've got a lot of capital today, it's intangible, it's very difficult to know how to invest that. That's your asset. It's an asset that you helped to build. I was a mouthpiece for a movement that you guys have been involved in, and how do we continue to grow this, and what do we do? And the ethics laws are such in Texas that we could continue the work for state sovereignty and private property ownership through a campaign, but it seemed that it made more sense to create a vehicle that had a little more flexibility and fewer restrictions. And so tonight you're here at the launch of the We Texans organization. And boy, we've got a good night. God's good to put together people for certain times and certain places. And as I'm sitting here preparing to take the stage this evening, one of those new blessings that we've got as a result of the work that we did in Texas, we had a few victories in March, and one of them was a state representative race up in Northeast Texas. Mr. David Simpson will be our new state rep. David understands the U.S. Constitution, and he understands economic policy and concerns. He's going to be a tremendous leader in the Texas House, and he just came up and shared some news with me that I asked him if he would take the stage and share with you. I won't steal his thunder. David, come up and tell us what's going on at the convention yesterday. ran against longtime entrenched moderate Republican candidate. He ran a hard race and he beat an incumbent. That's a hard thing to do, I can tell you. And we want to give him kudos, but tell us what you just shared with me, David.
Well, thank you very much. I am very glad to tell you that Deborah Matina's campaign has been very effective. Yesterday at the GOPAC meeting there at the Hyatt, the Texas Conservative Coalition gave a briefing to many of the prospective House freshmen like myself and Republican nominees for state House representatives. And one of the major things that they spoke about was not the reduction of property taxes, but the goal of eliminating property taxes.
We can get that done if we keep working hard. I believed it during the campaign. I believe it today, and that's one piece of very good information. We're going to use this organization as a vehicle to make that happen. I've made a couple of trips to Austin already to begin to lobby that legislature. We must, if we are going to set our nation back on the right track, we must take seriously the work that has been started here. We must understand the tools that are available for us to restore a limited constitutional government and a sovereign state. And so part of what we Texans will be doing is communicating with you and helping you to continue to stand shoulder to shoulder with us as we advance those ideas. Private property and state sovereignty are the preliminary and primary fights that I'll be engaging in the coming legislative session, but that session has already started. Just as you've seen that there were temporary committee meetings going on at the Republican Party of Texas State Convention, there are temporary committee meetings going on in Austin over the last several months, and those will continue through to next January. We're going to be using We Texans to communicate with you what's going on in those committee meetings, and we need every one of you to become grassroots lobbyists. I was talking to some folks over in the hall today, and they said, well, what do we do? And I said, we need some innovative campaigns, but all around the state of Texas, our state representatives need to hear from us every bit as often as they hear from the Texas Association of School Boards and the Texas Municipal League and the Texas Association of Counties. Every time they hear from them, they better hear from us. We're smarter, we're quicker, and we're more innovative. We can run circles around those paid lobbyists. But we've got to organize ourselves to do that. I was talking to two young girls that are in college, and they were so excited, and I said, you know what would be really awesome is if you'd figure out where your state representative lived, and you'd make sure that every bumper sticker in every house next door to him had an eliminate property taxes sign on the bumper. And every yard, as he drove out of the neighborhood, would say eliminate property tax, and maybe the billboard on the corner, and he would have this perception that it was everywhere. And there's only 150 or so state reps in Texas, so why don't we find out where they live, and we just make sure that we plaster every yard around their house that says get rid of property tax. And we do simple things like that, and if we become, what happens to that dripping faucet? You know, somebody finally fixes the drip because you just can't take it, and you better become, as you attend campaign activist trainings, you'll find out that there are two things that motivate most people, pain and pleasure, and it's very difficult to give pleasure to a political candidate, and most of us aren't interested in that, but you can cause them pain. And you just become that dripping faucet until it's easier to just do what you want. Get rid of fixed property tax, because I don't want that phone to ring and I don't want to hear from that Deborah Medina one more time. And we've got to do that. We can chuckle about that this evening, but we've got to do it. If you'll commit to that, it'll happen in the coming legislative session. We are in an economic crisis in our state. I said through the campaign $12 to $15 billion budget deficit, and now you're hearing 18, aren't you? $18 billion hole. And nobody is offering real solutions on how to fix it. Property taxes will go a long way. You get rid of property tax and you will energize the economic engine of Texas. And you will promote freedom and prosperity here. We've got several state representatives who are anxious to carry the bill. But it's hard to be courageous by yourself, and so they need to hear from you that you're demanding. And they've told me you don't have to be the rocket scientist economist who can tell them all the ways that they're going to have to fix it. You just need to tell them over and over and over, get rid of property tax, get rid of property tax, get rid of property tax. And they'll figure out how to get it done. So we're going to start to send that message. We're going to use this organization to be able to do that. We're going to be doing a number of things over the coming months, not just to energize one another, but also to help educate. There's none better probably than our keynote speaker this evening, but in addition to Judge Napolitano, we have a new book out on the table that you can't get almost anywhere else. It's called Nullification. Tom Woods is a New York Times best-selling author, and Tom's latest book won't be released on Amazon until later this month, but we have it out here tonight, and it's called Nullification. I talked about that a lot. You understand nullification in Texas. Somebody's holding up a copy over here because we've been talking about that, but we've got to teach ourselves and our elected officials how to use those tools. So we're going to be doing some training. Tom is going to be with us on July 28th in Austin. If you're interested in sitting under his tutoring and his leadership, I'd encourage you to hold that date. We'll be in Austin training one another and inviting elected officials and candidates to come and learn what we're going to do. You heard me talk about the EPA and how we better keep the EPA out of Texas, and you've seen the damage it's doing in the last couple of weeks, haven't you? And yet we don't have any real interest in standing against it. The judge and I were just having a conversation over dinner, and he said if your Attorney General wanted to stop the EPA, he could stop the EPA. Are you going to put enough pressure on him to give him the will to stop the EPA? Because unless you demand it, he's not going to get it done. So you better start picking up the phone and putting a little heat on these guys to start defending Texas. That's their job. They asked for it, they asked for the office, and they've got a job to do. And we're suffering as a people and as a nation because they're enjoying living high on the hog while the people suffer in the economic crunch and crisis that we have because of their bad policy. There's no excuse given the resources that we have, the natural resources and the people and the energy that we have in this country for us to be in the predicament that we're in, and we're in the predicament all over the nation. We have an opportunity to change that here. What's going on this week here in Dallas, Texas is the Texas Republican Party State Convention. How many of you are delegates to that convention? It is the political party that serves as the vehicle that you use to identify your candidates, elect your candidates, and hold those candidates accountable to the platform, the ideas that you have worked on here this weekend. We better wake up and recognize that there is a select, limited few. You got 31 people sitting on these committees writing the rules and writing the platform, and you'll notice in your agenda, I know you got called to order late in the day today, but the agenda says you don't get called to order till late tomorrow afternoon. The purpose of the founders understood free assembly is to come together, to deliberate, to seek wisdom. You're going to be so tired by 4 o'clock tomorrow afternoon, you're not going to want to deliberate about anything except adjourning and going home. We better get new leadership in this party if we want this vehicle. If we want this political vehicle to advance the ideas of freedom and liberty and limited government, we need new leadership. We have people who sing a beautiful song from the stage, and they talk the right talk. But look at what is happening in your convention. You took a day off of work. You paid for a night in a hotel room, and you came here prepared to discuss and deliberate the party rules and the party platform, and you're not going to get to discuss anything until 4 o'clock tomorrow afternoon. And if you're like me, you get paid when you work and only when you work. And the fact that you were denied a day of productive labor today because you sacrificed that to come up here because you thought you were going to get to deliberate was an abuse of your time and your labor. When we respect one another, we'll remember those things. We won't get the most expensive hotels in town. We'll try to get you discounted rates as delegates. We won't overcharge you for meals. We'll get you here. We'll have classy events. We'll spur one another on to good work, but we'll be cognizant of the fact that you're making a sacrifice to come up and participate in your government. But that's only going to happen if you get new leadership that has a true appreciation for the base and the grassroots of this party. You have the opportunity to do that when you reconvene tomorrow morning in your caucuses and you vote for your state party leadership. You better ask some hard questions of the people that have been representing you, because every one of them is going to sound conservative. Where were you, state Republican Executive Committee member, when this conservative party was drilling itself a whole $750,000 in debt? Where were you looking at the books? What kind of board member were you when that was happening? You better ask those hard questions if you want change in your party. If you like what you've been getting, then you don't have to worry. You just go in and let them tell you what they want to tell you, and you vote, and it won't really matter. But if you want a party that is functioning and that is working as hard as you are, then we've got to ask some hard questions. We've got to see beyond the rhetoric to the fruit of their actions. Look at what they are doing and vote accordingly. It's my great privilege tonight to be here. It's your hard work that made this event possible. You worked hard through the campaign. We've got some intangible assets, but we had a few tangible ones left as well, and we're spending some of them here tonight so that you could come together and we could spur ourselves on to more work. And as we thought about the work that needed to be done, I immediately emailed Judge Napolitano and said, we've got work to do in Texas and I need your help. Can you come? Can you come? There are a lot of people in Texas who want to fight for sovereignty, who want to fight for freedom, who want to fight to restore the U.S. Constitution. And he put me immediately in touch with his staff, and we've been working for several weeks now, and I'm delighted that he's here with us this evening. If you've not had the opportunity to sit in an audience with him before, you're in for a real treat. After he speaks this evening, if you would like a copy of his latest books, Lies the Government Told You, we have those outside, and he will be at the book table at the end of the evening signing books, so feel free to stop by and get a book. We have a number of other materials out there as well, and I hope that over the course of the next week or so, you will visit wetexans.com online, sign up there, and begin to use that as a vehicle for us to communicate with one another and to continue these good works.